All right, well, hello YouTube, because this is going to go up on YouTube, and you guys are the ones that get to ask this. Welcome to YAWA. For those Filipinos, no, I don't mean Satan. I mean literally, you asked, we answered. That's or is it Philip? Yeah, I believe so. Or someone out there. Um, Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Brady, YAWA is a bad word in someone's language. So
Okay. By the way, I
yeah.
like the thumbnail choice of us with the wizard hats. It's good.
Oh, that's
Good
all
put.
AZ, brother. AZ was like, you know what? You guys get wizard hats. You guys are the
Nice.
best. But
Good job, AZ.
I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I did a couple of these without Brady the other day. But as always, Brady is like the go to person that we have here just because it's always wonderful to bounce ideas. All right. This one's a little lengthy, Brady, but it addresses both of us. You ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The subject is just it just says questions about some issue. Okay. Hello, Edgar and Brady. Hope you two, everyone in the chat and on YouTube, they know, are having a nice day. I love this community and a big thanks to you all. Oh, well, thanks for being a part of the community. We love you too. I'm trying to
Yeah.
make as much of a particular question as I can. I am 30 years old. I have two main issues. Number one, I lack some basic experience for this age. Two, it holds me from experiencing life in the world around me. Why I think so? I doubt I had friends in my life, just classmates or colleagues. They all stopped communicating as soon as reason to do so was gone. Now I have zero because of my remote job. I never had any romantic or intimate relationships, and I wasn't actively looking for it, maybe even avoided it in the past, despite the fact that I wanted to have it. And number three, all of my hobbies that I tried to start were invaded and criticized, and I dropped them. Only lately I started to do something about it. I think the main reason for this is my dysfunctional and overprotective family. Not my professional opinion, just an observation. Lately, I've begun to take some distance from them and bring some positive ideas, positive sides in my everyday life. I got some basic household skills. I didn't have any, and I started to control my environment. It was not easy, but intuitive part. The problem is, although everyone has their own path in life, people expect me to communicate as a 30-year-old, which is understandable and absolutely normal. I see people much younger than me who have more life experience or more experience with it, therefore, more individuality and identity. And I'm going to be honest, I feel jealous. I know it's wrong to put them higher than me, but I can't help myself. I am trying to make new friends where, when I'm sincere and honest, people are a bit unsettled. I think I'm still in middle schooler in my mindset, and this is showing. When I'm trying to fix my behavior, people are feeling artificial and act suspicious. Oh, they think it's artificial and act suspicious. And all I'm getting are now stink eyes. People who are talking openly about their feelings are calling me strange, sometimes problematic. It is possible that I didn't find with my people, but I tried with various individuals, and it ends the same every time. I think that mimic the body language are also the reasons why that I'm trying to fix, but I have a feeling that the reason is much more rooted than just this. Let's analyze that before we continue, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, the sense I get from this kind of question is definitely like that the lack of basic experience, right? We don't know exactly what that means, but we can kind of infer that it has to do with, either social or romantic relationships. Perhaps, not developing like as you see your peers' relationships developing. Um, and feeling like you're late to those experiences or they're not as fulfilling as you see other people having, right? And this is definitely a perspective of, seeing your peers move past these issues at younger ages, having more life experience and these sorts of things, and comparing yourself to them.
Right.
The main, like when you have a complex subject like this, it's good to look for like what is the verb.
Yep.
What is the actual behavior that's causing the problem? And causing the problem doesn't mean that it's a problem or that it's causing it. It's like what is the verb you're doing that is bringing this feeling to you, right?
Right.
And that verb is comparison. That's what's bringing this issue to the surface is, I'm comparing myself to the experience of others and finding mine lacking, or I'm finding that people are criticizing me for these sorts of things. and it's normal to compare yourself, right? Like we
Right.
all do that. Um, I would definitely say that, especially these days, it's very easy to compare yourself to, the experiences of others in a very negative way,
Right.
because it's very easy to show the world your best experiences and your best sides while not showing all of the other stuff. And it can create a bit of a perspective bias, but that's not to say that it's not happening. It's not to say that, like, well, all my peers, they all have jobs and girlfriends and wives or whatever at my age, and I'm kind of behind on that, right? Like
Uh,
that might be the case.
right.
Um,
Eh, and let me just touch on this before we keep going, because he does have a set list of questions for us. Like,
okay, yeah,
yeah, he was already giving us a little bit more of a backstory, and also with expectations. I do have, you are heading right along the line that I was thinking, so I'm gonna like make a mental note of that so I can come back to it in a bit. Let me just finish it up, and that way we can answer his questions. He's like, also the problem is that every day I drift more and more with the chances of to catch up with life. I know I'm not that old, but I think I will not fix myself before 35. I'll probably be nothing. No one wants to be my friend or partner with an immature person in a 35-year-old body. You'd be surprised. It brings anxiety that poisons my thoughts every day. If I have a problem to experience life, being in society, and share hobbies with others, what will be in 5 years? I start to think that I am done and it cannot be fixed. So here are the questions. What do I do if I have delays in communication? Maybe I'm already past the point of no return and cannot be helped. What to do with jealousy to other people who have much more experience in life, and how to get this experience if I'm not lost yet. I know this was really longer than I expected. I really don't want to give you guys more jobs than than you guys already have, especially if you work as a psychologist all day. Bro, don't worry about me. Like we're literally doing this because it's an awesome opportunity to get friendly advice. I
yeah.
hope it will not be this
I don't
way.
have a job at the moment, anyways. So.
Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity in your community. Keep doing what you're doing. Warm regard to your videos, every average enjoyer. So thank you so much for being open, honest, and vulnerable. But
Yeah,
let's address each question individually. So
yeah.
what does he do if he has delays in communication? What do you think about that?
So that's a good question to have, to be honest, because it definitely means that you have found, like, a lot of people feel like how this person is feeling without understanding why. And that's
Hmm.
actually a pretty huge step into, I think they mentioned feeling like they're too late to get to the stuff and they'll never be able to make up for it. But you'd be wrong. I mean, that is some people feel the same way that this person does and don't understand that it has to do with communication, and it has to do with, I'm feeling jealous about other people, and they're missing those revelations, and those are the things which crystallize the feeling. Those are like, lacking that awareness is what really makes it become a permanent fixture, right? The fact that you're questioning those things already means that they're just a crust
Right.
that is ready to be broken and to fall off, right? It's not something like that is hardened around you and can't be moved.
Right.
So in terms of what can you actually do about that, you would be surprised at the amount of just strict communication exercises there are and ways to practice your communication. You know, if we're talking about social communication, like, how do I talk to people I don't know? How do I, talk to people in clubs? There's a whole game made about this. It's very useful.
Super
But
seducer. No.
right, but no, but there are ways to sort of practice communication, right? That communication is just a skill like anything else. It's not something that you missed the boat on if you didn't learn it when you were 20 and now you can never learn it, right? It's not like learning your first language where you have to learn this as a child intuitively. And then as you get older, it gets harder to learn a language. It's not like that.
Hmm.
Communication and improving communication is just a skill like anything else. It's something that you can improve, it's something you can get worse at, but it's malleable. It can go up and down, and it can go any sort of direction that you can take it. And the proof of that actually has to do with language. I've actually counseled people who were trying to learn another language, right? Like if they were trying to learn Dutch, and what the anxiety they were experiencing was, I'm a very confident person and I have this personality when I speak in English, but as I try and speak in this other language, I feel like a child. I feel like an idiot, and I feel like
Right.
people see me as an idiot because I can't express myself. But people learn languages and they learn to communicate. You have to communicate in a different way, but that right there is the proof that solid communication is just something you can learn. Because if you learn another language, you have to learn how to communicate in that language. What you're looking for is just how do you communicate in the language you already know. And you already have a huge head start on that because you have the vocabulary probably. What you're looking for is, the refined set of techniques, but you definitely have not missed the boat on that specific thing.
Well, and what I was going to say is when it comes to delays in communication in general, the number one thing that I've noticed is a lot of individuals that don't have delays in communication. Usually, it can be caused by your environment, where your environment is, how controlled your environment is, what information you're getting, how you're getting. And the number one thing that I read, like at the very top, is like he's moved out. He's starting to like become independent, this independent being, and that'll allow you more opportunities to not just flourish as an individual, but have that opportunity to seek out new interactions, new opportunities. Delays in communication happen, like for example, if you move to another country, guess what? You're now behind where like all these other people, like for example, culturally, when we're in Europe,
Yeah.
very different like forms of communication, the way that they talk, what's
Yeah.
culturally expected and whatnot. So
Even though, let's say, in the Netherlands, everyone speaks English, we had difficulty sometimes communicating, and not that they didn't understand the words, but the communication style was so different, and sometimes we seemed like we lacked the skill of communication, despite that not being the case. But it is about your environment. It's about who you're communicating with. Because like obviously we understand the question very well. It's a very thoughtful, introspective question. So this person's not lacking an objective communication,
right.
skill set. It's more like, I might be lacking how to use it in social settings, or how to be confident in the way I communicate and these sorts of things.
So
And again, that's just a skill set. That's something that just it takes time and exploration to kind of figure out.
But let me just jump in there and say, like, the whole mimicking body language, don't do that unless you're already comfortable in communication, because that's called building rapport. Whenever someone mimics your like body language or whatever you're doing, if you're touching your nose like Brady just did, or so on and so forth, and you're actually face to face, what it ends up doing is like, you're able to actually build off a quicker rapport. But that's already when you're at a level where you're comfortable in basic communication aspects. If you're not comfortable, or if you're not there yet, it'll come off, it'll look artificial, it'll look a bit rough.
Yeah.
So, take baby steps, even if it's just saying, hi, how's your day going? This is actually what I used to do at the supermarket all the fucking time, as just to make sure that I still have my principles and my basics in. It's like, with the cashiers in the Netherlands, it would take them off guard. They wouldn't know what the fuck was going on. If I was hitting on them, not hitting on them, or whatever. It's like, hey, how's your day been?
Hey, how's your necklace?
Shut
That's a
the
nice
fuck up,
necklace you
Brady.
have.
Yes, that too. But still, damn, Brady, damn. But yeah, like that's probably the best way for even Kratos is laughing, dude. That's honestly the best way to go ahead and get started. And trust me, like even at Walmart, I actually did this the other day. Or I was paying for my stuff. I was like, oh, so how's your shift been? Are you having a good day so far? It blows people's minds because they don't, a lot of people when you're like shopping and whatnot, they don't use that as an opportunity or as a time to like even be like, hey, you're a human being that's also working here. Let me empathize with you a little bit and practice basic communication. Hi, how are you doing? You having a good day? Are you okay? Just doing that basic thing over and over and over again builds up your communication skills.
Yeah, and you can start small, and really, like, if we want to get granular with communication skills, like there are specific, there's a specific list of things you can identify as like, okay, I have trouble with this kind of communication. And you can start very small with just like Edgar's talking about, kind of basic conversation with people, and you can work all the way up to the level of, if I was working with someone on high level communication, one of the things we might talk about is like, when you're having an argument with someone, right? One of the main causes of arguments, especially in romantic relationships, is when you are responding to, a history of problems when for the person on the other end, this is their first experience with it. So what I mean is like, let's say your partner does something that kind of pisses you off, but you don't want to bring it up because you don't want to start an argument. Well, maybe you've seen them do it 4 or 5 times, but your partner doesn't know this, right? They don't
Hmm.
know that it bothers you. Well, the ninth time that they do it and you mention it, you might be responding to 9 iterations of a problem, whereas the other person, it's 1 iteration. And this can lead to more intense problems than there needs to be. So being aware of the other person's perspective, right? That's just basic kind of being able to empathize and be like look through their eyes, like okay, from their perspective, this is the first time I'm bringing it up. I shouldn't respond at the level that I'm having in my mind. And so that's like, that's a high level communication technique, right? But it goes all the way down to, here's how you can communicate with people in a very basic sense. But the point of this is that there are, specific communication uh, styles and techniques that you can just learn.
Yeah.
You can sit down and say, here's something that, I need to work on. I need to work on when I'm reacting to something. Am I reacting to it at the appropriate intensity and these sorts of things?
And
So that awareness just goes a long way to say, dig into this issue and really find out what for you are the real pain points. What do
right.
you specifically have trouble communicating with? And you can target those things and find ways to improve them.
And when it comes to reactions, I think the best way that I can throw this out there is, there are, as I mentioned earlier on stream, but I haven't really touched on it here. There are acting classes, there are stuff out there that can help you like naturalize what emotions can mean, what reactions to certain things, especially like reaction times and stuff like that. Not everyone has time for it, I know. But one of the best things that I can tell you is if you genuinely don't feel it, don't show it. People will be able to see through a bullshit smile quicker than you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
it just, as Brady says, pick up on things that you really want to work on, especially when it comes to communication. I would say, like, I personally start with the foundations all the time, and that's something that I have to, like, go back and, like, touch on every single time, because that's a good way for me to build up for some of the higher, more advanced
Yeah.
stuff. Question number
One,
two.
one, well,
Sure.
one last thing I would want to say about this is, be aware of the scale of this as a project, right? Like, you can't master communication,
Hmm.
even if you are very good at it, right? Like, you might talk to someone who just kind of completely undoes your idea of how good you are at communicating with people because just they're a different person. This is something we experience as psychologists where it's like you could be a master of psychology and practicing for many years, but you might come across a person who is dealing with an issue that you just you're not going to know
Yeah.
instantly how to deal with it. So when you think about your communication as a skill, don't think of it as something like it doesn't have a linear curve of, right now I have 5 points in it and I need to get to 100. Like, it doesn't have that kind of dynamic. Like, getting better at communication is not just a vertical climb in skill because people are very different. And like we were talking about, if you go to another culture, you're going to find that your communication plummets. So it's just not,
Yeah.
it's not a, it's not a vertical challenge like
But
getting physically stronger is. Just having that perspective, I think, would help make you feel like this is something I can do, and I don't have, you know, um, it's not like yeah, like I'm not losing, X amount of points in my charisma because I can't communicate.
but we technically answered two out of the four questions with that, which is like how do you get experience, which is wonderful. My other
Yeah.
question, the other question here that I think By the way, the point of no return, just in general, because there's no such thing. You always have an opportunity, like, to learn something, to improve, to do whatever, as long as you acknowledge it. And I think that's pretty much like there's a contemplative, pre-contemplative cycles of change, right? I'm not sure if you remember that, Brady.
Yeah.
And like when it comes down to like starting a new hobby, a new activity, sometimes we hear it. Like for example, if Brady's like, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna go running." Don't get me wrong, I love martial arts. I hate running. And like, he's like, say that for some reason we're living together. We start the, I don't know, the hive mind psychology house or something. And he's like, we're going to go running every single day, just like mentioning it. Sure, whatever. He says it again, whatever. Now I'm like, maybe it would affect my health. Now I'm thinking about it. And then Brady's like, hey, do you want to go running? Now that I'm thinking about it, now I'm making logical conclusions. I could be like, hey, Brady, let's go running. Let's do one. Let's see how bad it is,
Yeah.
And there's no point of no return. Like, the only point of no return is when you limit yourself. And I think that's just like limiting skills, limiting beliefs, limiting whatever is out there. Anything you want to add to that, Brady?
Yeah, I mean, what Edgar's talking about here is this, it's called the stages of behavioral change, and it goes from pre-contemplation, where we are unaware of the problem, right? We have not even contemplated it.
Yeah.
We go to contemplation, which is where we are aware of the problem and we're aware of the desired behavioral change. So perhaps this is where you are in this uh, in this particular case. So pre-contemplation, we're not even aware of it. Contemplation, we're aware of it and we're aware of what we want to change. And then we go up to preparation, which is where we intend to take an action. We go up to action, where we implement the practice of the desired behavior. And then we go to maintenance, where we work to sustain the behavioral change. Like that's the general climb of
Hierarchy of it. Yeah.
yeah, and this is just one model, of course, but it's true. It really is like, this is a piece of advice that my mom gave me not that long ago because like I have moved around a lot. Basically, I have never spent any in any place I've been more than a couple of years. And so I have started over a lot of times. I've started over, you know, socially, romantically, educationally, financially. I moved to Europe. That was like starting over everything. Now I moved back to America after living in Europe my whole life, and I
Yep.
don't. It's like I'm back in a place I have no idea where I am. I don't understand this place, and I was complaining about this. I'm like, I'm tired of starting over. Like I start over so many times. Like Edgar is like my best friend, and I only met him like 2 years ago. Like that's how like all of the friends I have before that I have no contact with,
Yeah.
you know, over 25 years. So like I know what it's like to be like, you don't, I've always been envious of people who are like, yeah, that's my childhood best friend from, um, whatever. Well, technically, I guess it's been like 4 years, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it's been like 4 years, brother. I was pulling up the calendar right now. I was like, wait, how long is it? It's been 4 years, brother.
Yeah, it's actually been 4 years. So, so you can see where my head is at though, where it's like I think in such short-term blocks of life because that's how my life has always been. Like most of the time, by now, a lot of people I know, I don't know, I just break that kind of contact with them, not on purpose, but it just happens. So I know what it's like to start over. I know what it's like to feel like, you don't have a cascading group of friends, but I also thought that was never going to change for me. I also thought like, I'm never going to have a sustainable group of friends. And then I met Edgar, and we're great pals, and we're continuing that friendship. Um, and so, those things can change, and life is about starting over.
Yeah.
Even if you get comfortable in where you are, and if you're 35, if you're 40, if you're 50, right? Like, my grandmother is someone who, moved to a new kind of retirement community, and she doesn't know anyone there. And it's like she's starting over, in her 70s and 80s. It's like you're never gonna run out of times where you have to start over at some point, at some level. And that's life sometimes, but you
Yeah.
do accumulate something new every time.
What I was about to say is like the one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned about the point of no return is exactly that, is like we're the ones that limit ourselves, because I remember in our master's program there was individuals that were in their 60s, right? Like
Yeah,
their
that's true.
60s, yeah, and they were
And that was
starting their
he was getting a new career. Yeah.
yeah, and he was getting a brand new career in psychology as a psychologist, which is
Yeah.
like, oh shit, there's only a handful of us here in this program, and he's one of them that made it. Cool. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about like situations like that.
Yeah, like restarting is a natural part of life, and if you have the attitude that that's an opportunity rather than a setback, then it can turn into something positive.
Um, and then the final question is like, what to do with jealousy, which is what you answered earlier about like other people with much more experience in life. Let me quickly address this. If you're watching people on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, because there's a lot of people on there that you'll see and you'll be like, oh wow, they're doing this, they're doing that. A grand majority
It's
of
a
that,
lie.
you have to remember it's fabricated, and it's fabricated towards the experiences that they want to go ahead and share with others. But once that camera goes down, once that screen turns off, I can bet
It's
you, yeah, I can bet you that they have a lot of problems, emotional, whatnot, that they're dealing with as well. Because I'll be honest, sometimes like we're filming and everything, it goes down. I feel exhausted. Like, I'm like just like thinking a majority. Like I have my thinking face like a majority of the day. I turn on the camera and I'm like, all right, I got to talk to you guys. I got to have like this interaction going. But aside from that, it's like thinking face. Or when me and Brady are playing ping pong, my thinking face goes to like, oh shit, can I really like get this ball into this specific area of the net that he can't hit? By the way, Brady is a fantastic like ping pong player. Like no, no, don't even hide it. You were one of the individuals that taught me how to play ping pong. You were there when I was absolute garbage. But the point of that is like, if we were to make TikTok videos about it, I bet you that we would put like all of our good rounds that we would go at it, or when we'd go out dancing or whatnot. But the moments in between, like the walking, the us having a tough emotional talk, the bad days, the good days, like not really the good days, but the in between days, that probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be shown, you know?
Yeah. And I should say it's not like it's a lie what is shown on TikTok or social media, but it is not an accurate representation. Some of it is a lie. Like, right? Like people do fabricate their social media. They use these like, I don't know, Photoshop apps or whatever else. But on the whole, like it's not that it's a lie, it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
And what Edgar's talking about is absolutely right. Like, even this environment, right? We're not putting
Um,
on a different version of ourselves, but we're trying to be cheery and a certain way as we are as friends, but also as entertainers or whatever else. But we have our lives outside of this, and in general, it's not all exciting. And trust me, I've got tons of psychological complexes and issues that I'm not dealing with very well. Um, but it's what everyone goes through, in a certain way. Like we're all fucked up, and we're all going through something that we don't want to show necessarily or talk about. And so that verb, that comparison, it can trick you into thinking that a lot of these people, are doing better than you, or are making their advances quicker, right? Um, and it's not that they aren't, but I guarantee they have something else going on or something coming to them that is going to upset that stability at some point or another.
right. And it's gonna sound really fucking weird, but when I was learning social psychology, right, like way back in the day, way back in my bachelor's before I met Brady, my professor back then was straight up honest. He's like, social media is one of the biggest fabrications that you can use towards your benefit. I.e., if you're trying to impress someone that you like, or if you're trying to get back at with an ex, or go against them, or whatever. Why? Because all of a sudden, guess what? For example, you have a really, like, you have a breakup. You're still not over that individual. A majority of the people, girls included, and everyone in between, they'll start posting the best versions, the fabricated versions of themselves on the stories. And whose attention is that getting? individuals that
Yeah.
they're either looking for or individuals that they're trying to get back at. And it's this constant state of mind, where it's like, all right, you know what? Other people will always have, for example, I know this, there are other psychologists out there that are like, can probably take a one little thing that you say to them and like dissect it into like 1,000 little pieces and whatnot. Brady's significantly better, and he's had other life experiences with certain topics in psychology, and even like moving around. I don't have that full experience of moving around and living in Europe into different countries, like wherever you lived at, and it's like I'll never
Yeah.
have that experience. But what I can do is I can appreciate you for having that experience and being open to share it and being open to like share your whatever, right? And
What all the downsides are, because it could very easily come off as like, yeah, I had this awesome life where I got to, live in Denmark and live in the Netherlands and all this stuff, but like, wow, sometimes I really regret that experience. Here I am back in America, back in my home country, and I feel like an alien. Like it has completely destroyed my sense of identity because I don't have a strong identity over there, right? I'm a foreigner over there, but I also spent most of my life outside of
over there.
America, so I don't have an identity here. So I have this like non-identity. So on the surface, a lot of those experiences are great. They're very character building. They, showed me a very expansive world, and I got to meet very interesting people, but it's also led to friendships that don't really last, even like one of our other closest friends, he's halfway across the world right now, and like you just don't, a lot of my friendships don't last because I've moved around or they move around. They all live internationally. It's like,
Yeah.
when are you going to get a chance to see them again? So there's two sides to all of that. I do appreciate a lot of those experiences, but they've also led to a lot of problems
Yeah.
that don't have easy solutions.
You
I would
know,
say though about jealousy, there is a difference between jealousy and envy, and I wouldn't be able to define them specifically philosophically, but my interpretation of them is, envy is probably more what you feel. Is and that's a very natural thing to feel. It's like I see something someone else has, and I wish I also had that kind of experience. Jealousy is more like I see someone else has something and I want it, but I also don't want them to have it,
right.
right? So it's not just, oh, that person's doing really well and I wish I was too. It's like I wish I was doing better and that they were doing worse.
Right.
So I don't think that's the kind of feeling you have. So I would definitely say it's a little more towards envy.
But with that being said, you know what? Thank you for being open and sending in this email, being honest, because it takes a lot to be vulnerable. I got to be 100% honest with you. Like, as I mentioned earlier on stream, I had a bunch of went to go teach an acting class, and I'll bring this around. And I actually was able to connect with some students there, and they were being very vulnerable, very open. Granted, because of who we are as psychologists, sometimes we pick up on the nitpicky things, i.e., picking your nails. Oh, are you dealing with something at home at the moment? Like, it's okay to like be yourself, be able to pick up on certain situations, be able to connect with people. And ultimately, what I'm trying to wrap around this is vulnerability is key, because the more open you are with people, the more that they are able to understand and try and empathize where you're at the moment and where you're going. So super duper important. Thanks for everything. Thanks for sending the email. And if you have any other like questions, concerns, send another one. That's what we're here for. And
Yep.
all of you in chat, for the way, if you're like new and you're like, I want their opinion of the situation. One of the mods will go ahead and link the email so that you guys can go ahead and send in another one. So thank you so much. And you ready for another one?